And I have to say that I kind of enjoyed the perspective of the most evil character the most, and I still feel like it haunts me now. One of the greatest human achievements. Hi, my name is Rhianna. Welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking about every book that I read in 2025. So I had a very good reading year in 2025. I would say I liked the majority of the things I read, or at least the majority of the things that I finished. Usually if I start a book and I'm not enjoying it, I don't end up finishing it because life's too short. There are plenty of books out there and I don't want to waste my time reading a book I don't like. So all of the books that I'm talking about in this video are books that I finished. So they're all worth finishing in my opinion, but I have put them in some sort of order. So we are sort of starting with the one that I enjoyed the least, going up to the one that I enjoyed the most. I'm going to try and limit what I say about each book, otherwise we're going to be here all day. So I have written like one sentence about each of the books to just try and make sure I don't ramble too much. And if you'd like to hear more in-depth thoughts I have on books, I did make another video which was my top 10 books of 2025. So I read 42 books in 2025 and I don't really have a reading goal most years. I mean, I kind of set an arbitrary goal, but I never really seek to achieve that because I read for fun, you know, and I try not to ever put pressure on myself to read. And so yeah, here is every book that I read in 2025. The Murasaki Bookshop is a cute story, but it was a little too simple and it takes the mantle of my least favourite book of the year, but I finished it. Morality Play is about a clergyman who decides to leave the church and go travelling around medieval England with a group of actors, and they make theatre together and try to solve a murder, and it was fun, but it didn't really stick with me. Sexual Misconduct of the Middle Classes is a play about an age gap relationship, a relationship between a teacher and their university student, and it stars Hugh Jackman. Grief is a Thing with Feathers is a very heartbreaking, poetic novel that I did really enjoy, but I read too many bangers this year. It's this low down on the list. Orbital is the winner of the Booker Prize. It's another poetic novel about astronauts in space. There were a lot of moments in this book that made me think about life and what it is to be alive, but it was just a bit overly poetic for me, which prevented me from fully falling into the story. Fractured Soul was a surprise for me. It was a random pickup and I really enjoyed it. It was about a luthier who tries to fix a violin and also tries to fix themselves. Fractured Soul refers to their fractured soul, but also the fractured soul of the violin. House of Hunger was a really enjoyable fantasy book. It's about this female protagonist who goes to live in this big house, and the big house is run by a female vampire, and the female protagonist must give some of her blood to this vampire in order to like stay in the house, and they form a complex relationship with one another. Blood over Brighthaven is another great fantasy story. It is set in a fantasy world, and this fantasy world is used as a metaphor to explore themes of colonialism, oppression and sexism. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is one of the most craziest stories out there. What a weird little book, but every time I read it I have a great time. I really love reading it as a metaphor for how weird and wonderful adolescence can feel. Secret Garden was another great children's story that I read. I had a great time reading it, but honestly I don't have much to say. It's just a nice little cozy book. The Railway Children was one of my favourite films as a child, and I decided to read the book. And it was so nostalgic because there were so many moments from the film that I remembered through reading the book. And also to say that this book is really well plotted. Like, there are twists and turns. There are things that surprise you in this book. Why I Write is a little book written by George Orwell about why he writes, or why he wrote, I suppose. And I picked it up because I was feeling a bit lost in my own writing, and it did encourage me to write again. So I'm glad about that. Nevermore is a magical children's story which made me feel like I was 11 again. How to Train Your Dragon is another magical children's story that also made me feel like I was 11 again. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time. There is a part in this book where the main character is lost on the London Underground and they start to panic, and honestly every time I get on the London Underground I feel kind of similarly to how they felt in that moment. Legends and Lattes is a cozy fantasy book about an orc who decides to leave the life of a mercenary behind and set up their own coffee shop and it's very sweet. The Book of Witching is about a real life woman named Alison Belfour who lived in the 1500s in Orkney, which is an island in Scotland, and she was executed for being a witch. And this story is about her, and it also has a modern day perspective. The Lady from the Sea by Hendrik Isbern is about people and their complicated lives. The Master Builder by Hendrik Isbern is another play about people and their complicated lives. Hamnet broke me. What a sad book. I think my favourite parts were the love story parts between William and Agnes. I have to say the second half I didn't enjoy as much because something tragic happens, but really, what a great book and a great ending. The ending is epic. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil was so enjoyable. I had such a good time reading this book. It's about female lesbian vampires, and I have to say that I kind of enjoyed the perspective of the most evil character the most. Thursday Murder Club is a sweet, heartfelt story about a group of friends who live in a retirement home who try to solve unsolved murders together until one unsolved murder happens on their doorstep, and then they have to solve that one. And the movie was also really good. The Silent Patient is probably the most addictive book that I read this year. I could not stop reading it. I knew there was a twist in it, and I did kind of guess the twist, because I find that when you know there's a twist in a book, you're like looking out for it, so it's more likely that you're gonna figure out what it is. But it still surprised me when it came about, because I was still like, oh damn, you know, I still felt everything the writer wanted me to feel. The Picture of Dorian Gray is probably one of the best written books ever. Every line is quotable, and I have a long list of my favourite quotes from this book. Namely, America wasn't discovered but detected, and where do Americans go when they die? To America, of course. I love America, but gotta admit, there's some funny lines. Beloved, I think, is the saddest book that I've ever read. While I was reading it, it was haunting me, and I still feel like it haunts me now. Things We Lost in the Fire is a short story collection. The first short story in this collection, called The Dirty Kid, will stay with me forever. Her Body and Other Parties is another great short story collection. There are weird, unique short stories in here. My favourite one, I think, is the one where a character goes to a writer's or artist's retreat in the mountains and some weird stuff started to happen. I was endlessly intrigued. Waiting for Godot, and I'm still waiting. You know, still waiting for Godot to show up. The Safekeep is one of my favourite love stories of the year. It is a literary enemies to lover and has a plot twist at the end that I didn't see coming. Bloodchild and Other Short Stories has my favourite short story ever within it, which is the title short story named Bloodchild. It's so unique and creepy and has a lot to say about how humans oppress other humans, or aliens oppress other humans, you know, but it's kind of a metaphor. The Island of Missing Trees is my favourite love story of the year. Daphne and Costas will stay with me forever, as well as The Fig Tree. 100 Years of Solitude is one of the craziest books I've ever read. I'd like to make a video dedicated to this book, but I'm still formulating my thoughts on it. And that's all I'm going to say for now. Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead has my favourite protagonist from the year. She's iconic. Parable of the Sower is one of the most haunting dystopians that I've read. I love how the protagonist has this problem/gift where she feels empathy too intensely. So if someone were to get punched in front of her, she would feel the effect of that punch, and I thought that was a really interesting idea, especially in a dystopian world where a lot of violence happens. She's Always Hungry is my favourite short story collection of the year. Each story is a banger. Each story is its own little world. I loved it so much. There Are Rivers in the Sky is about how water remembers, and it's humans who forget. The Will of the Many is a fantasy epic based on the Roman world, and it got better and better as I kept reading. The last third, having it on the edge of my seat. Rebecca is an iconic gothic tale about an unnamed protagonist who marries the mysterious Max de Winter, who has an even more mysterious dead wife named Rebecca, and she goes to Manderley, Max de Winter's estate, and tries to figure out the mystery of who Rebecca was and what's going on with her new husband. I Who Have Never Known Men is a book that doesn't provide you with many answers, but I loved it. I loved coming up with theories about what different things meant, and it really woke me up. Piranesi made me romanticize my life a bit more. It made me lean into the simple things in life and It made me a better person. What a great little book. The Secret History is about these awful university students who murder their friend, and I loved it. I kind of love reading about awful people, you know. Words of Radiance is the second book in the Stormlight archive, and this series, wow, it really feels like I'm stepping into another world when I read these books. I love them. One of the greatest human achievements. So those were all the books I read in 2025. I'm really excited to read more books in 2026. I have like my list of books that I'm excited to get to, and yeah, happy reading. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.